Let's look at the first question. The first question says that a 25-year-old primigravida at 36 weeks of gestation attends the antenatal clinic. Her blood pressure is measured to be 148 by 88 millimeter of mercury, and a repeat measurement was done 30 minutes later, and the result was 146 by 92 millimeter of mercury. But her BP throughout pregnancy have been below 140 by 90. She does not have any other complaint, and urine analysis is negative for proteinuria. Now, what is the most likely diagnosis? As we know, for the diagnosis of preeclampsia, presence of proteinuria is absolutely important. But here the urine analysis is negative for proteinuria, so clearly it is not a case of preeclampsia. Now let's look at the options. Option A is preeclampsia. It is not a case of preeclampsia because the urine analysis is found to be negative for proteinuria. Another option is gestational hypertension. In case of gestational hypertension, the blood pressure increases after 20 weeks of gestation. But here, her BP was normal throughout the pregnancy until she presented with elevated BP in her 36th weeks of gestation. So it is not a case of gestational hypertension also. Chronic hypertension. In case of chronic hypertension of pregnancy, the elevated BP presents from the day 1 of pregnancy. As it is given in the question, the BP was normal throughout the pregnancy. So it is not a case of chronic hypertension. So the answer here will be delta hypertension. It is a case of delta hypertension. Now let's understand the concept of delta hypertension through this chart. In this chart, the in y-axis blood pressure is depicted, and in the x-axis weeks of gestation have been depicted. These are some percentiles of blood pressure: 5th percentile, 50th percentile, and 95th percentile. Here is a patient, that is patient A. Patient A, the blood pressure throughout her pregnancy remains in the 25th percentile. Now assume another patient which I am drawing here, the blood pressure remaining in the 25th percentile, but from the 32 weeks of gestation it acutely rises and crosses the 50th percentile mark in the 40th week of pregnancy. So before 32 weeks of pregnancy, the blood pressure was at the 25th percentile mark, but after 32 weeks there is an acute rise of pregnancy, but it never reaches the 95th percentile, which depicts 140 by 90 millimeter of mercury. So it is below 140 by 90 millimeter of mercury, but there is an acute elevation. This type of cases are known as delta hypertension. Now let's look at our case once again. As it is given in the question, her blood pressure have been below 140 by 90 millimeter of mercury throughout her pregnancy, and at 36 weeks of gestation it is elevated. So it is a case of delta hypertension. Let's move on to the second question. A 30-year-old primigravida at 38 weeks of gestation presents with complaint of contractions. Her blood pressure is noted to be 146 by 90 and 150 by 96 millimeter of mercury on 2 measurements. She has a urine protein is to creatinine ratio of 0.28 and a creatinine of 1.02 milligram per deciliter. The baseline was 0.48 milligram per deciliter. Normal AST and ALT and a platelet count of 1,20,000 per microliter. She denies any other symptoms. What criteria for severe preeclampsia does this patient meet? Now let's look at the criteria for preeclampsia and severe preeclampsia. Criteria for preeclampsia. Number one is hypertension. So blood pressure will be more than 140 by 90 millimeter of mercury. In case of severe preeclampsia, the blood pressure will be more than 160 by 110 millimeter of mercury. Number two will be there will be evidences of proteinuria in both the cases. Now, how can we diagnose proteinuria? First is urinary protein is greater than 300 milligram per day, or urinary protein is to creatinine ratio is greater than equal to 0.3. And number three is dipstick test shows 1+. So proteinuria will be present both in preeclampsia as well as in severe preeclampsia. Number three, there will be evidences of renal damage. So creatinine level will be more than 1.1 milligram per deciliter or double of baseline. This shows the renal damage. Number four will be liver damage. Which will be depicted by increased AST and increased ALT. Other features will include blurring of vision, and thrombocytopenia. The level of platelet will be less than 1 lakh per microliter. Another important differentiating feature between preeclampsia and severe preeclampsia is, in case of severe preeclampsia, in addition to the increased BP, there will be pulmonary edema. Pulmonary edema will be positive. But in case of only preeclampsia, there will be no pulmonary edema. Some deleterious features like headache and cerebrovascular features will be present in severe preeclampsia as well as in later cases of preeclampsia. Now let's get back to the case. Here it is mentioned the blood pressure is 146 by 90 and 150 by 96, and the diagnosis for severe preeclampsia is greater than 160 by 110. So this criteria is not met. Platelet count is less than 1 lakh per microliter. Here it is 1,20,000. So this criteria is also not met. Protein is to creatinine ratio is 0.28. It should be greater than equal to 0.3 to be a case of preeclampsia or severe preeclampsia. Here the creatinine is 1.02, but it should be greater than equal to 1.1 to be a case of severe preeclampsia. But here the baseline is given. The baseline is 0.48. So greater than double of the baseline is 0.92, and here it is more than 0.92. So it is a case of severe preeclampsia. So only the elevated creatinine value meets the criteria for severe preeclampsia. Now let's look at the options. The options include proteinuria. The proteinuria value is not met. Elevated creatinine, yes, this is the answer because it is 2x of the baseline. Let's look at the next question. A 25-year-old primea gravida at 36 weeks of gestation presents with scotomata and headache. A blood pressure of 168 by 102 millimeter of mercury and proteinuria. A diagnosis of severe preeclampsia is made. The hemodynamic condition will be. Let's look at the options. The options are depressed, hyperdynamic, or normal. Let's look at the hemodynamic condition of a normal pregnancy and in case of preeclampsia. In case of a normal pregnancy, the hemodynamic condition either remains normal or it is slightly hyperdynamic. In case of preeclampsia, there is a diastolic dysfunction. But in spite of that, the hemodynamic condition remains slightly hyperdynamic or normal. But if a large amount of IV fluid is given, the hemodynamic condition turns hyperdynamic. So in this question, the answer will be hyperdynamic and normal. The next question says a multiparous woman with no antenatal care presents in active labor with blood pressure of 154 by 92 millimeter of mercury and proteinuria. Vaginal delivery is done with the second stage of labor lasting only 15 minutes. The infant is noted to have petechiae on the scalp and chest and oozing at the site of his heel stick. An initial platelet count is 30,000 per microliter. So there is thrombocytopenia. Which of the following disorders is least likely to be the cause of infants' thrombocytopenia? Now let's look at the options. Among the options, maternal preeclampsia cannot be a cause of fetal thrombocytopenia. In case of preeclampsia, there is decreased platelet in mother. But due to the fetoplacental barrier, the maternal blood does not actually reach the fetus. Only the nutrients go into the fetal blood. In fetus, the platelets are produced from the bone marrow. As a result, maternal preeclampsia and maternal thrombocytopenia will not cause thrombocytopenia in the fetus. A 41-year-old woman attends for antenatal clinic. She has a demanding professional career and she is unwilling to attend the frequent antenatal visits at the end of pregnancy. You encourage her to do the antenatal visits regularly. Explaining these visits are recommended for which of the following reasons. Now, as the age of the mother is greater than 35 years, so she is a elderly primea gravida. So antenatal visits are absolutely necessary. Let's look at the options. Early detection of preeclampsia. Yes, early detection of preeclampsia can be done by antenatal visits. Early detection of fetal complication also can be done by the antenatal visits, and to detect the possible malpresentation and discuss delivery planning. All of these are necessary and can be done by regular antenatal visits and investigation. So the answer will be all of the above. This is an extension to the previous question. The patient in the previous question presents with labor at 38 weeks gestation with vaginal bleeding and hypertension. She has a rapid labor with recurrent late fetal heart rate deceleration and delivers a depressed infant within an hour of arrival. Pathological examination of the placenta was done What is the most likely finding? Probably she was suffering from preeclampsia before delivery, and the placental pathology which is commonly found in case of preeclampsia is retroplacental clot and diffuse infarction which occurs due to vasospasm. So this will be the answer, retroplacental clot and diffuse infarction. Next question is a two-part question. 28-year-old G2P0 at 39 weeks is in early labor. She is 2 cm dilated and 90% effaced with contractions every 4 to 5 minutes. The fetal heart tones are reassuring. Her nurse steps out for a moment and returns to find her having a seizure. Now the first part of the question says the nurse administers a 4-gram magnesium sulfate bolus for the seizure and the seizure stops. The fetal heart tone variability is flat, but there are no deceleration. What would be the next step of management? The options include diuretics to reduce edema. There are distinct indications for diuretic in case of eclampsia. In case of eclampsia, diuretics to be given only with eclampsia with pulmonary edema. In presence of pulmonary edema, diuretics are given but not regularly. So this is not the answer. Next is immediate cesarean section. Immediate cesarean section is also not indicated here. Cesarean section may be done in this case after stabilization of the maternal condition. So after maternal stabilization, cesarean section may have to be done in this case, but after stabilization. So immediately cesarean section is not the option. Hypotensive agents for reducing the blood pressure to 110 by 70 millimeter of mercury. Reducing the blood pressure to this level may cause vascular insufficiency. And may affect the fetus. So, rapid lowering of blood pressure should be avoided in cases of eclampsia. The last option is the correct one, keeping the patient free of convulsion, coma, and acidosis. Now let's look at the second part of the question. Which would be the most common warning sign or symptom for her eclamptic seizure? Now there are various warning signs or symptoms for eclamptic seizures. They can be the epigastric pain due to subcapsular hematoma, severe headache due to cerebrovascular involvement, facial edema can be present, and elevated BP is also present in case of eclampsia. But the most important is the severe headache. The patient often describes this headache as the worst headache of their life, and this headache precedes the development of eclamptic seizures. So here the answer will be severe headache. If a renal biopsy is done in this patient, which pathological finding is expected? Now the patient suffers from eclampsia. There is renal involvement in eclampsia. The renal involvement is glomerular endothelial swelling. This is the renal involvement found in case of eclampsia patients. This occurs due to protein deposition in the endothelial cells that leads to the swelling of the endothelial cells. This is called glomerular endotheliosis. So the answer here is glomerular endothelial swelling. Next question is also a two-part question. A 22-year-old woman without antenatal care, primigravida, in the third trimester of pregnancy arrives in the emergency department. She has presented because of headache and visual change. During examination, she had a convulsion. The first part of the question says, what should you do while waiting for the magnesium sulfate bolus? Because magnesium sulfate is the drug of choice for eclamptic seizure, but before that some supportive measures can be done. The supportive measures include protect the patient from self-harm. Now, what can be done to protect the patient from self-harm or prevent self-harm? Number one, a mouth gag is inserted to prevent the chewing of the tongue in the patient. Number two, the patient is kept at lateral decubitus position to prevent aspiration. And if any aspiration or vomitus is there, it is sucked out to prevent aspiration. These are the measures to be done to prevent the self-harm of a patient during eclamptic seizures. So the answer here will be protect the patient from self-harm. Second part of the question says, after subsiding the seizure, she complains of blurry vision. What is the most likely finding upon fundoscopic examination? In case of preeclampsia or eclampsia, there is involvement of the retinal vessels. And as other vessels, the retinal vessels undergo vasospasm. And that leads to the blurring of vision. Also, there may be involvement of the occipital lobe optic area due to the vasogenic edema. So here the answer will be arteriolar spasm, and that causes the blurring of vision. Moving on to the next question, a patient and her relative are anxious about your suggestion that she will be giving magnesium sulfate for seizure prophylaxis. In assuring her about the safety of the drug, you can say which of the following. Let's look at the options. It is a mild, smooth muscle constrictor, thus safe, but there are many side effects of magnesium sulfate that are known, like respiratory depression and others. Cardiac arrest can also occur due to magnesium sulfate toxicity. The drug has a narrow margin of safety. That is true. Beyond the safety limit, there will be various adverse effects, but this is not the answer here, because informing the patient about the narrow margin of safety will also increase their anxiousness. The drug is rapidly excreted via kidney. This is the right answer. Magnesium sulfate is rapidly excreted via kidney. So in case of renal insufficiency, where the renal function is impaired, magnesium sulfate is not given, and the drug is meticulously monitored in case of renal insufficiency. So the answer here will be the drug is rapidly excreted via kidney. This is the second last question. A 26-year-old G3P2 at 28 weeks of gestation brought to the emergency after being found unconscious at home. She is oriented at arrival and found to have blood pressure of 178 by 110 millimeter of mercury and 4+ proteinuria, so severe preeclampsia. She gives a history of eclampsia in her prior pregnancy 34 weeks of gestation, and then starts seizing, the 5-minute long GTCS resolves with MgSO4 administration. So magnesium sulfate administration was done and the GTCS was resolved. After the patient is stabilized, she undergoes cesarean section for malpresentation. A MRI postpartum was done. Now, what is the most likely finding on imaging? This is an image of the MRI. It clearly depicts some lesions in the posterior part of the cortical matter, especially in the occipital lobe and in the parietal lobe. This involvement is classically seen in case of eclampsia. This is known as posterior reversible encephalopathy syndrome or PRES. So this is the answer here. Here usually the occipital lobe and the parietal lobe are involved. But what is the cause of these lesions? Cerebral involvement in case of preeclampsia and eclampsia can be explained by two different theories. One theory holds that there is vasospasm of the cerebral arteries that leads to the lesions. The popular theory shows some areas of the vessels undergo vasoconstriction and some areas undergo vasodilatation, and that exceeds the limit of the autoregulation in the vascular system of the brain. This change leads to a vasogenic edema formation, which ultimately results on those lesions or posterior reversible encephalopathy syndrome. Coming to the last question of the day, which shows 29-year-old female with 32 weeks pregnancy is referred for jaundice. She is admitted in the hospital with suspected preeclampsia. On examination, the patient is ill-looking with moderate anemia and moderate jaundice. Edema is mild and pitting. Blood pressure is elevated 150 by 105 millimeter of mercury. Further investigation shows proteinuria positive. So hypertension with proteinuria, this is a case of preeclampsia. Hemoglobin is on the lower side, 7.9 gram per deciliter. Platelet is also on the lower side, 84,000 per cubic millimeter. So it is less than 1 lakh per microliter. Bilirubin is elevated, SGPT, ALP, these are the liver enzymes which are hugely elevated than normal. Serum creatinine is also elevated. Now what is the diagnosis here? The diagnosis is HELLP syndrome or HELP syndrome. So what is HELP syndrome or HELLP syndrome? H stands for hemolysis. That is why the hemoglobin level was on the lower side. EL stands for elevated liver enzyme. That is why the liver enzymes like ALP and SGPT was on the higher side. And LP stands for lower platelet values, and the platelet count was less than 1 lakh per microliter. So this is known as HELLP syndrome, and it is the diagnosis here. It is a combination of hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, and low platelet values. That concludes our today's video about some clinical MCQs on hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. Thanks for watching. You can access and download the notes on this topic from our website and Facebook page. Both the links are given in the description. Do like, share and subscribe to our channel for more conceptual videos like this.